How do you support your teenager's guilt and shame because of her friend's attempted suicide? Well, let's talk about that today on Tips on Teens. My name is Kent Toussaint. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I specialize in helping kids, teens, and families live happier lives. I lead two organizations, Teen Therapy Center and the nonprofit 501c3 organization, Child and Teen Counseling, both here in Woodland Hills, California. Every Wednesday at noon, I jump on to Facebook Live to answer your parenting questions. Let's answer today's. In the car, my 15-year-old daughter started crying as one of the kids in her class had attempted suicide some time back. She told me she could feel their pain the day of, but had done nothing and now carries the guilt of doing nothing. She told me that multiple people in her year have attempted this, and the pain she feels when she sees them or thinks of them sucks any joy she has. I asked her if she knows what to do, if she feels that someone may hurt themselves, and she says she wouldn't know what to do if it happens again, and no one wants teachers or parents to know. I don't know what to say or do or what action I should take that would not in turn break her confidence. The alternative is a child could hurt themselves while all the other children are walking around with this knowledge and silent pain. Any advice is welcome. Thank you for your question. This is a heavy one. This is a real heavy one. It's a messy thing. I could talk for about an hour on this, but we don't have that much time. So I'm gonna scratch the surface, gonna touch on the basics, but clearly this is a deep, deep issue. The first and foremost is to be there for your daughter. I know that kind of goes without saying, but don't feel the need to fix anything. Don't feel the need to change anything. That's just going to put pressure on her. Just be there, put the arm around her shoulder, express you understand, and give her open space to talk about this as much as she is willing to do it. Normalize the fear, the sadness, the guilt, the shame. Any of us would go through this because there's a huge feeling of helplessness. And one of the big reasons of this helplessness, and this is really not spoken about because it's almost unspeakable, and we could barely even acknowledge it ourselves, is this unconscious anger and resentment toward our friends for trying to die by suicide. Stay with me on this. Let me explain what this means. You have a friend, you're close friends, you love each other, you hang out with each other, you have a dependency on this relationship, and they have a dependency on you. Especially when you're 15, relationships are so important, those friendships are so important, and they help define who teenagers are. And now this friend wants to die, is pushing herself away from your daughter, from everyone else, and in your daughter's mind, this is a possible reaction. Even though, again, it's so hard to give voice to it. And this is the voice. This is what the words are. How dare you? How dare you throw our friendship away, rob me of this close friendship, and kill yourself? Well, how could you do that to me? Aren't I good enough? Isn't my love, my friendship good enough? How can you do this to me? For obvious reasons, it's really hard to give voice or awareness to that resentment and that anger. Thus comes helplessness. Thus comes guilt. And while we want to support the person who is threatening suicide, it hurts the other people around that person who's trying to die. It hurts your daughter. And I think it's really important to make space for that voice. Now, she doesn't have to share this with her friend. Maybe she's sharing it with you, maybe her therapist or whoever. But I think it's really important that we really understand what is going on here, because we can't stop someone from dying by suicide. If someone wants to die, they're going to die. Now, can we influence? Perhaps, but we really can't do a lot. Which comes to the point of also is talking to your daughter about, if we don't tell anyone, if you don't tell your friend's parents or teachers, and your friend does succeed and dies by suicide, how are we going to handle that? Are we able to accept that? And again, suicide, it's a cliche, but suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Another example that I've heard recently, and I like this analogy, it's not to be flippant, but it's like going to buy new shoes, and you realize your shoes are too small. So instead of returning them and trying to find new shoes, you cut off your toes so your feet fit. It's not really an effective way to deal with a problem. So it's really helping her understand how to deal with this. Also, I think it's important to talk to your daughter about, does this, your friends attempted suicide, other friends who've attempted suicide, does this bring up the idea that you may want to attempt suicide and die by suicide? Now, all of you went, ah! Trust me, you're not planting the seeds of suicide in your kid's head. She's already thought about it. I guarantee she's thought about it. Everyone has thought about suicide in one way or another. Some people dismiss it out of hand and don't give it much credence. Some people give it a lot of credence. I think it's really important to give space for your child to talk about this so we can have a more conscious and aware conversation instead of having it in here and being the secret, because then it's murky and hazy and it's hard to know what's going on. But if you can talk about it in a safe place, you can hopefully make more thoughtful decisions. And then you can also start talking about, how do you start involving teachers or other parents to help your friends not make a very rash decision. Now, may your friends be angry at the beginning? Maybe. But generally speaking, once they get to a healthier place, they're really grateful that friends stepped in. Because ultimately, when people are trying to commit suicide, they're feeling alone and they're wanting to be heard, wanting to be understood. And again, I'm painting with a broad brush here. But generally speaking, kids just want to be accepted. And when kids are trying to commit or die by suicide, oftentimes it's a feeling of being alone and unaccepted and feeling helpless. And when we are surrounded by a helpful community, helplessness dissolves into hope and optimism. It can. It has that opportunity to do it. This is a big topic again. We can talk for an hour or two about this. If you're concerned about your child, again, there is the hotline 988. You can call that. You can reach out to your local clergy, to your therapist, whatever it is. Make sure that your kid is getting the support they need so they can deal with this, because every kid's going to be faced with this in one way or another. Suicide is a big, big topic among adolescents. So I think it's really important that we are having open space talk about it, just as you would sex or drugs or anything else that's uncomfortable. The more you can talk about it openly and the more you can lead the way with confidence, the more your child can follow. That's our topic for today. Thank you so much for your questions. If you'd like to get more of these questions in your feed, join our Facebook group, Tips on Teens. Again, my name is Kent Toussaint. If you'd like me to answer your question, email us at tipsonteens@teentherapycenter.com. Thank you for joining us. Again, Kent Toussaint with Teen Therapy Center and the nonprofit Child and Teen Counseling. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye, guys.